At 53, Ben Affleck looks calm, but the quiet is heavy on him today, like winter air after rain. You can almost see the weather sitting on his shoulders. The smile sits right, the eyes say something else, and I feel that ache. We remember the Oscars glow from Good Will Hunting and Argo and think everything healed. The highlight reels trick us into believing the weight evaporates. But I have learned the loudest success can hide the softest, deepest hurt. I hate that it is true, and yet it keeps proving itself. I dug through old interviews, old timelines, and, the gaps started to whisper. The wins are real, the reinventions are real, yet the cost kept piling up. That math never feels fair when you say it out loud. Two great loves shaped him, two different homes, two different versions of Ben under pressure. You can trace both outlines in the way he holds a room. One part of him runs toward lights, one part wants coffee in total silence. That contradiction feels so human and, honestly, a little exhausting. That tug of war never shows on a poster, but it moves every choice. It pulls at schedules, sleep, and the small rituals that keep you steady. If stories are maps, his looks like a coastline, beautiful and forever eroding slowly now. I keep staring at those edges and thinking about what the tide took. Hit subscribe if you love legends told with care, and stay close while we unpack. It costs nothing, and it keeps this conversation warm between us. Before we dive deeper, can success be a blanket when the night itself feels endless? I grew up loving old stories, so his childhood in Cambridge hit me straight and stubborn. There is a grit in those streets that teaches you to watch closely. A teacher mom held the house steady while a creative dad faded into drinking. That steadiness and that slipping shaped the air these kids breathed. The divorce came when he was 11, and the quiet afterward felt unsafe most nights. That kind of quiet hums like a fridge in the dark. He learned to read faces, comfort his brother, and hide inside, acting for shelter. That is survival, not drama, and it trains you without mercy. At 13, he worked on PBS shows, honest work that never yelled back, and steady light. Early checks, small sets, and the feeling that effort could actually change tomorrow. That same boy packed a small bag at 18 and chased Los Angeles anyway with hope and doubt. I mean, that is a kind of courage you only have once. He and Matt Damon shared couches, noodles, and the fear of going home empty. Two friends turning rejection into fuel because rent does not wait. Casting rooms said no over and over until the word felt like a bruise. No started to sound like a name you could not shake. So they wrote at night, two friends and one stubborn typewriter facing the dark again and again. Every page said maybe, and that thin maybe kept them at the table. Failure turned into practice, like push-ups, painful, boring, and secretly building hidden strength in him. That is the unglamorous truth of craft, and it works if you let it. Good Will Hunting was born from those nights, and it cracked the world open. Suddenly, the phones rang, the rent eased, and the dream felt real enough to touch. When destiny finally knocked, do you think he felt ready or terrified underneath? Overnight, Good Will Hunting turned two friends with a typewriter into award winners. The room changed, their names changed, and even old friends looked a little surprised. He smiled on stage, but inside he still felt like the broke kid on the couch. That dissonance is loud, even with the tux on. Then came Armageddon and Shakespeare in Love, and the noise grew brighter and sharper. A rocket ride is fun until you realize you cannot get off. Films stacked from Changing Lanes to The Sum of All Fears to Daredevil, and exhaustion followed. The calendar looked like a dare, and he kept saying yes. Pearl Harbor made money, but the reviews cut him, and the cheers stopped feeling like music. Imagine clacking that sounds like it is for somebody else. The camera loved his face, yet he worried the work inside him was getting lost. That is a terrible feeling for any craftsman, especially one still forming. Then the first Jennifer story began, dazzling, and privacy vanished into headlines and helicopters. Love plus paparazzi turns daily life into a hallway with no doors. Giggly crashed hard, and the same voices that crowned him turned him into a daily punchline. That whiplash is bruising, and it lingers longer than people admit. The wedding to Jennifer Lopez was planned, then postponed, and the silence afterward felt endless. He drove alone that night, while she cried quietly, and both tried to keep grace. Their love was real, but fame became a magnifying glass that burned even the tender parts. I still think about how heat can warp good wood if it never lets up. When the world writes your story for you, how do you hold on to yourself? After the headlines faded, he went quiet, and that quiet finally taught him truth and forgiveness too. Look, sometimes the only way forward is to stop moving for a minute. He turned to directing, not to chase applause, but to listen for honesty again. Sitting behind the camera felt like taking a deep breath for the first time in years. Gone Baby Gone showed a patient eye, and it felt like a steady heartbeat returning. The choices were small and exact, which is where real trust lives. The town proved he could carry weight by day and night without the noise. You could feel Boston in his bones, and the film respected that. Then Argo arrived, a rescue story that somehow rescued a part of him too. It moved like an old thriller and healed like a private letter. The film won big, and he stood there, older, softer, and grateful just to stand. You could hear humility in his voice, and honestly, it grounded the whole room. He spoke about getting up again, about not holding grudges, and the room felt human. That kind of wisdom only shows up after the fire has cooled. I remember watching that moment and thinking, oh, this is the man under the myth. The armor was lighter, and the eyes looked rested for once. Success finally felt like peace, not fireworks, like a lamp you click on at dusk. It was the kind of light you can read by, not pose with. He stopped trying to prove people wrong and started trying to feel right inside each day. That shift is quiet, but it changes everything you reach for. It was less victory march and more healing walk, slow, real, and completely earned for him. When applause returns that way, do you hear clapping or a second chance breathing? With Jennifer Garner, love arrived quiet, like a porch light left on after dusk. That calm kind of love sneaks up and teaches you how to exhale. They married simply, far from flashbulbs, and built pancakes, swings, and soft bedtime moments and Saturday cartoons together. The small stuff is the big stuff, and he knew it. 3 children came, and he whispered they were his best story, night after night. Hearing a dad say that always gets me in the throat. But old shadows stirred, and alcohol crept in like fog, slow and strangely tender. Addiction can feel like a friend at first, and then it locks the door. I hate even saying that because, it is not a blame story. Shame solves nothing, and love is not a switch you flip. She helped him seek help, even driving him to rehab, choosing grace over gossip. That is a kind of courage that does not trend, but it saves lives. He tried, fell, tried again, and the house learned a new, heavier kind of quiet in their rooms. Recovery is messy, and progress sometimes hides inside very boring days. They chose kindness and separation, keeping the focus on the kids and steady mornings. It takes discipline to protect the ordinary when headlines want chaos. He called losing that family his deepest regret, and you can hear why easily now. The ache in that sentence tells you everything and nothing all at once. The cycle he feared most stared back, father to son, ache to ache, unfinished. And yet he stayed present, kept showing up, building redemption from small, stubborn mornings every day. When love breaks like that, is presence more powerful than any promise you could make? After the divorce, he did not chase fireworks. He searched for a steady flame. The body can only take so much jolt before it begs for quiet. With Lindsay Shookus, mornings were coffee and calm, 2 people rebuilding with outperformance and honest plans for tomorrow. That kind of normal can feel like a miracle after a storm. It was tender and grown, but distance and recovery rhythms made the timing uneven. Timing is a stubborn teacher, and it rarely offers extra credit. They ended quietly, tried again briefly, and then chose to keep kindness from farther away. Sometimes love is keeping your hands open instead of holding too tight. I respect that because not every good chapter must pretend to be forever at all. A clean ending can still hold gratitude, and that matters. Then Ana de Armas arrived like sunlight through fast clouds, warm and playful and bright. You could see the spark, light and easy, like laughter echoing down a hallway. Quarantine wrapped them in a slow bubble, with walks, cooking, and balcony laughter and shared quiet playlists. For a while, he looked lighter, as if the past finally loosened its grip just a little. But seasons matter, and their seasons did not match: future versus repair, spark versus wait. That is not failure, it is simply two metronomes clicking at different speeds. They let go without drama, honoring what was real rather than forcing a rewrite. There is grace in closing the door softly, even if your heart lingers in the hall. He said some people remind you of warmth, even if they cannot stay long. I carry that line around like a pocket heater on cold days. Have you ever held a sweet season lightly, just so it would not break? Years later, they found each other again, not as glitter, but as weathered hearts and brave. There is a softness to people who have walked through their own storms. In the spring, they smiled like people who had learned the hard parts already. Joy looked steadier on them, like shoes that actually fit. They blended families, moved through airports hand in hand, and let time feel kind without apology. The everyday logistics became the love language, and honestly, that is beautiful. A simple Vegas wedding, then a Georgia ceremony, and Hope felt patient for once with family watching softly. Vows said quietly can still echo loud in a kitchen the next morning. She thrived in the hum of fame, turning pain into motion and bright expression. He craved the hush, early coffee, kids laughing, a study filled with quiet pages. Two truths can both be right and still not meet in the middle. Love was there, real and deep, but the rhythms kept missing each other sadly. By mid-year, tiny misunderstandings stacked up like dust, and the shine dulled over months. You know how dust looks harmless until you realize it covered everything. On a winter morning, they packed slowly, choosing dignity over drama and holding grace. Nobody failed, they just listened to the part of them that needed air. They did not break each other, they just could not keep the same tempo twice. He returned to work and stillness, she returned to art and movement, both respectful and kind. The love can be true, even when the timing says no without malice. Have you ever loved someone deeply and realized peace meant learning to truly let go? Today, he lives quieter, choosing peace over noise, like switching from neon to candlelight truly. The volume knob is finally turned to a level you can breathe with. The big Beverly Hills life is gone, and the new place feels human and warm, sold with grace. There is something healing about a home that does not perform for guests. Books and guitars surround his desk, not trophies, and the windows breathe ocean air. Tools over souvenirs always tell me where a person is going next. He still loves a classic muscle car, but drives electric most days for calm. It is a little compromise between thrill and quiet, and it suits him. Work matters differently now, with artists' equity built to share profit and protect crews for everyone. I admire that because fairness is a choice you have to keep making. Giving is steady too, from Eastern Congo projects to quiet support for recovery programs. You can tell who you are by where your money travels at night. The greatest wealth feels simple: freedom to pick work, make breakfast, and show up. That is a kind of luxury that does not need a spotlight. Money stacks tall, sure, but meaning stacks taller when kids laugh in the kitchen. I hear that laugh and think, right, that is the whole point. I think about him a lot, and I keep rethinking what winning means. Maybe winning is not a moment, but a practice, like making a bed. Maybe the real arc is not fame, but forgiveness, earned one morning at a time. Thank you for watching with such heart, and please subscribe if these stories speak to you. Before you jump to our next legend, is the bravest choice sometimes to stay with us?